Hello and welcome back to the Wisdom of Odin. Today I want to explore a subject that is definitely infamous and famous all at the same time because I feel like it's very closely related to the over-obsession with the Vikings and the Viking Age, especially when it comes to the faith today, but it's still a really interesting topic and one I think is worth exploring, and that is shapeshifters within the faith, specifically Berserkir, or Berserkers as they're known, because I think this is one of those things a lot of people know about, and I was surprised by how much information there really is about this, and so I'm really excited to talk about it. And this is something that we've kind of explored a little bit in the community, so I'm going to be talking about that as well, as far as our explorations into the more primal rituals, but of course I do want to give you the factual information here first. So I think the best one to start with actually comes from the definition in the book, The Saga of the Icelanders, and I have the Penguin Classic Edition, and so I'm just going to read it to you here because I think it's the best way to summarize what a berserker was. Berserker literally means bare shirt, a man who slipped or deliberately worked himself into an animal-like frenzy, which hugely increased its strength and made him supposedly immune to the effects of blows from weapons. The berserks are paradoxical figures prized as warriors and have evidently rewarded as having supernatural powers bestowed upon them by Odin, the god of warriors. I mean, that's pretty clear and concise. Now, one thing to actually talk about here is what bare shirt means. And so it seems like there is a slight debate about this. For the most part, it seems like most people accept this as they wore bare pelts into battle or during their rituals. But it also has been suggested that bare means literally like no shirt or no clothes in general. So sometimes you see depictions of Berserker wearing no clothes, and this seems to be part of their motif and something you see in popular media as well as them being fairly naked when they do these things. And I mean, I can kind of see it with the animal aspect as well, but I definitely think, like most people, that it means they wore bare pelts, especially when it comes to the different versions of berserkers and shapeshifters. Now, while berserkers may hold a mythical understanding or be connected to mysticism or magic in some way, they also do have historical records and evidence that they did actually exist, or at least warriors that wore bare pelts into battle existed. Within this column here in Rome, there is a depiction of two berserkers in this battle formation of the Roman legion. And we do know that there was actually reference to this in Germania as well, of the Germanic people working themselves into an animal-like way or frenzy. And so it's a very popular motif for the Germanic people as well to have berserkers or animal shapeshifters within their ranks. But the thing I really want to talk about here, and the evidence that is probably the most known but also gives us the most information, or at least information about other things, is the Torslenda Plates that were found in a cairn, so basically left as an offering almost, from what I understand, if they were left in a cairn or left as a grave mound offering as well. But these plates here depict 4 different types of warriors. The most famous one definitely being the spear wielder here, wearing the horned helmet, which is more actually a raven helmet, and dancing with a spear. Now, actually, this figure as well is missing an eye, so it has been suggested that this is Odin himself, dancing with a warrior clearly dressed in a wolf-like outfit. The other images depict other different types of berserkir or other different types of shapeshifters. You have one featured with boar, which is a very rare one we know very little information about. Then, of course, there is the bear and the wolf warriors as well. And this gives us our breakdown of our 3 main shape-shifting warriors. So you have the bear or the berserkir, and then you have the wolf or the Fedenar, and then you have the boar warriors, which are the Jofur. And again, these are very less known, and it's only suggested that they were actually shape-shifting warriors that kind of followed the Vonic deities, because the Vonic deities are tied to boars. Now, with the other two, as far as the Fedenar and the berserker with the bear skin, there is a lot of stories and evidence to suggest that these were actually warriors that were used. Back within the Saga of the Icelanders, we do have a story from Harold Finehair, or Hairfair, that he used berserkers as shock troops within his army and had a personal bodyguard of shape-shifting warriors that could turn into a bear. Now, I remember reading this a long time ago when I first got this book, and it really kind of blew my mind that I was like, it just casually mentions that these men could shapeshift into bears. So I thought that was really cool. It was literally just like, and they could shapeshift into bears. Super casual. Now, there is actually written source material for the Fedenar as well, as far as the wolf warriors and shapeshifting into wolves, and that is contained within the Saga of the Volsungs. Now, it comes to you in chapter 8, and I'm not going to read you the whole thing, but I'm basically going to summarize it here so you get the idea. So within the story, you have 2 brothers that steal wolf pelts that were supposedly enchanted from 2 men, and then when they put them on, they transformed into wolves for 10 days. And then on that 10th day, they were allowed to go back into their human form. And so for a while, they actually raided and pillaged as these wolves and really took on the aspect of the wolves. And they actually had a call sign between each other if either needed help. And after doing these deeds, they basically decided that doing these things were horrible and eating people and killing people. And so they came back on a 10th day once again and burned the pelts and burning the curse as well. So again, just really interesting. And there was another story in here about a wolf, like an angry wolf mother who was killing this series of kings. And so there was a bunch of children, and when they finally got to the last one, they covered the remaining child in honey and put honey in his mouth as well. And then when the wolf actually came to eat him, it was licking off the honey instead, and then when it got to his mouth, it put its whole mouth inside of his, or its whole tongue inside of his, and he bit into the tongue, ripping it off. So there's a lot of really intense wolf stories within this, within the Saga of the Volsungs, which is really cool. But the one with the actual wolf pelts, now it doesn't say Fedenar in general, but you have two guys wearing pelts, raiding and pillaging in a mystical way. So it's pretty easy to, you know, connect those dots. Now, this is also where we can start talking about the negative side of this. As it mentions in the Saga of the Icelanders, once again, in its description, the wolf warriors and the berserker were actually one of those things that were falling off. And for a while, they most likely had mystical properties that were really highly prized. And then at some point, the king started just using them for, you know, war, using them as a shock troops, and basically getting them killed and not caring if they died. Now, I think this was most likely because Christianity was moving into these regions, and so the need for supernatural shape-shifting warriors that called out to Odin were not something the Christians necessarily wanted, so they were just throwing away these troops and using them while they could. And this is no more evident than within the Gragas laws, which are medieval Icelandic laws against heathenry, against heathen practice that literally outlaw berserking, outlawing the act of going berserk. And so the fact that you have a medieval law saying you can't do this shows that I think it's because Christianity was moving in. They were shown as more savages. Now, having said that, if you actually go and watch the Northman movie, which I did a review on and I really loved, the Fedenar and berserking and berserkers are something that are very prominent within this and something that you can see. And so you can actually see their interpretation of Fedenar ritual, and it's really awesome. Like, it's really cool, and I really recommend checking it out if you haven't already. And this movie is really savage, and what they do is very savage and very aggressive and very bloody. And so what really this leaves us and brings us to this last section of here is, what does this mean for us today? You know, we've covered the stories of the past. It's really interesting as far as stories, but does it mean anything for us now? I mean, the majority of us are more like the farmers of the past than we are the warriors. And so do we really need the ability to shapeshift? And my answer to that is we see shape-shifting throughout the source material, throughout the Eddas. The majority of the gods appear that they can shape-shift as well, at least Odin and Freya, and then people, they bottle Freya's cloak. And we see shape-shifting in general happen throughout the stories. And when it comes to that, does that mean you actually become that? Did Odin literally become a snake? Did, you know, Freya actually turn into a hawk or a falcon? Did warriors actually turn into bears? No, I think they connected to aspects that were those animals. And this is something I will be exploring later, is the idea of fylgja and what you can do with fylgja, or spirit animals, or power animals as they're known within shamanic practice. And you can take on those aspects. And so when I think you're honoring the bear spirit or the wolf spirit, you're letting those take hold of you and letting yourself become filled with that creature and the aspects of that creature. And so again, I think watching the Northman gives you a really good idea of what this was like. It's not like they turned into wolves. They took aspects of these things and brought that into their battles. So like I said, this is something that we have done as a community, and obviously we're not going to battle or anything like that. So what do we do with rituals like this? The best two examples I can give are the Odin Ritual I performed at the Ohio Yule last year, which was a primal ritual, and it was an Odin ritual, but it wasn't necessarily calling to the beast form of either the bear or the wolf. And so the idea of this ritual was gratitude. Much like Heilung and Heilung's aggressive music is about healing, this was a ritual to being grateful, to bringing gifts to Odin. But the warriors within that ritual were protectors of the people that night, because the wild hunt is riding, evil spirits are out in the woods, you know, the veil was thinning. And so the warriors in that were actually there to protect the 60 participants from any spiritual beings that may want to harm them. And so that's the role that they played, but it was still very primal. And you can definitely see that, or at least I think you could see that in the way the ritual ended with the men releasing what they were doing, releasing the primal energy. And I think this was also something that was really good for the participants as well, as far as the men performing this ritual. It can be something performed by women as well, and the women were participating in a way. They were actually calling us back and singing us there. But in this ritual and what we did here, it was men in this ritual. And what they felt afterwards was a release from the modern world. Now, they all came back, and that's the biggest thing. It's not how you get there, it's how you come back. And anytime I think you're doing these more primal rituals, or you're wanting to do anything with merging with your fylgja, or shape-shifting as it's also known, you really want to make sure you have things in place that can bring you back. This is not something you're going to do the first day you become a pagan. This is something that takes a long time to get to. The Odin ritual that I performed took over a year to plan for, over a year of practice to do it right. And of course, we're taking notes, we're learning from it, and we're going to perform it again and learn from any mistakes that we made or any sensations that were not realized. So yeah, I think it's one of those things that's really cool to actually connect to the primal. I think the best example I can give is, think about it when you go to a sports show or a concert. You can be as loud as you want because everyone is loud. Everything is loud. And so you can really release your vocals, scream at the top of your lungs, sing with the song, and no one's going to care. Performing a primal ritual is very similar to that. It releases the shackles of the modern world that hold us back, the shackles of the everyday of trying to eat and survive. It allows you to attach to something that is so deep in the earth, deep in nature, or connected to an animal. Now, recently within the community, a member of ours performed an actual Fedenar Ritual, which is really intense and was really cool. So I'll put up some of that footage. You can't see too much because it was very dark when they did it, but I'll read you some of the lines they were reading, which again were actually very similar to what they did in Northmen. So clearly the research is there. The people that did the research and helped with this ritual, and again, it's something that took months to do. It was really cool. So I'll leave you with footage of that, and I'll put some of the lyrics here that really showed you, the primal aspect and calling to Odin at the same time. With spears and shields we march over the land. The wolfskin protects us, we need fear no man. We are Odin's chosen, we meet him in death. The gallows call lead us to our final breath. Heathenry, fight to the last. Not iron nor fire can harm us tonight. Strong in fate, our earth to fight. We march to glory and laugh if we fall. Our songs will be sung in our glorious halls. I mean, that's pretty cool. And again, it's something calling to a war aspect. But in this modern sense, it really has to deal with why you're doing it, the intention behind the ritual itself. If you're looking to do something that is negative, you will get negative results. And so I think being in a very clear headspace when you do these things is very important. And once again, with my Odin ritual that I can speak to of direct experience, the lesson was gratitude and protection. Those are the reason we did it. It was very intense. It was very primal. People were growling, people were acting like beasts. But again, the intention was positive. So if you go into these rituals wanting something negative to happen, it's more than likely to do it. And once again, I want to do this as a PSA. If you're just getting into this faith, this is not gatekeeping. This is a warning. This is basically saying, like a crossing guard, saying, whoa, this is something that's really intense. So when I give this information here, just understand that this is something that's taken me years to get up to the point of doing a primal ritual. It's not something I do every night or every week, maybe even every year. And this is something that requires a lot of thinking, a lot of talking. I've talked to so many different people to create this. I've watched a lot of different resources. So this one video is not enough to go do your own primal berserker ritual or shape-shifting ritual. This is something that it does take a lot of time and can go wrong. Like, you can really damage yourself, damage your soul, your spirit, whatever you want to call it, if you don't perform this correctly. Or you can even hurt those around you, that if you don't actually have a way to ground yourself afterwards. And I really recommend doing any of these things with other people that you can have each other's back, because again, these can get really intense. And this is definitely one of the aspects of the faith that is probably a little bit more taboo, is talking about these more primal rituals, because they can go wrong, or people can twist them to go the wrong way. So, just be careful. Don't jump in, head first. Get your, test the water, see how it goes. But it is really, really cool seeing one performed. Again, seeing Heilung live, they do something very similar. So yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this video and this look into the Fedenar, the Berserker, the Shapeshifters of the faith. It's definitely something that in myth is a really cool story and leads to some really cool adventures, but it does have modern world uses as well. As long as they're handled properly and with care and with good intention, I think they're really useful and something that can really help you within your own spiritual path. But remember, just take your time. Don't rush into it. With that, thank you for joining me here in the beautiful hills of Kentucky for this conversation on Berserker and Shapeshifters of the Faith. If you want to support this channel and what I'm doing here, please think about checking out Patreon. And if you are thinking about supporting our community and the building of our hall so we can perform rituals like this in the future and continue to grow and evolve this faith, please think about supporting us through GoFundMe to purchase the land to build the hall. And other than that, thank you all very much once again. And until that hall, Skull.